All right. So let's start off with the Warriors and the Kings. So the Warriors the Warriors got the sixth seed that every other person or every other team in the bottom half of the Western Conference wanted. They wanted the sixth seed against the quote unquote inexperienced Kings. So in this series, who do you have and in how many games?
I'm gonna go with Warriors. It's 6
Mhm.
with Wiggins playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Assuming Wiggins playing, because he said I believe he's back with the
He's gonna
team.
play. Yeah, he'll
He's
probably play
playing.
limited minutes, but he's gonna play.
Yeah. So ultimately, as good as the Kings were this season, I just think that experience is going to play a huge factor in a playoff series.
Mhm.
And ultimately, like the Warriors are technically the defending champions. The experience is there. They have the best player in that series between both teams in Steph. And I do think that their roster overall is just really well built.
Yep.
So despite their inconsistencies throughout the season, I believe most of their important players are healthy, or if not all, now that Wiggins is back. So I think they should have an edge over the Kings. Though I'm not going to completely discount the Kings either. You never know. Their offense has been fantastic this season. Like one of the best offenses I've seen in some time, actually. So really surprising there. But ultimately, this Warriors experience, not just experience, but championship experience, will takes the cake for me in this matchup. So I'm going to go with Warriors in 6. I do think the Kings could put up a fight for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think the awards in six. Now having said that, if this goes to a seventh game, I think the Kings will probably win. But for me, I think the Warriors will win in six at home and like close it out. Um, to your point, they have significantly more experience. Um, Wiggins will probably be in a similar plan as Curry last year. If you recall last year, Curry just got healthy right before the playoffs, and they slowly ramped him up throughout the first round of the playoffs. I think they'll do something very similar with Wiggins this year. Um, Having said that, and let's just jump into X factors now. I feel like the X factors for the Kings who could make this series interesting is for me. I'm gonna go with two people. One, I think it'll be Kevin Huerter because the Warriors this year. Now, this is more so on the road, not so at home. What they have not done well this year is perimeter defense off of threes, right? So they have a tendency to scramble. And now that hasn't been much the case once GP3 came back, but they have not guarded the three well this year, especially on the road. I mean, clearly on the road, right? If Herter can make threes, if he can move around the perimeter, make the Warriors scramble a bit, hit some shots, and cause disruption in their defense, I can see the Kings doing well just because the Warriors have a tendency to give up threes. I mean, it's just how they've been this entire year. And the other X factor is, I mean, quite frankly, is it's just Mike Brown for like two reasons. Like one, he was on the Warriors coaching staff the last 3 years. He knows those players. He knows a lot of their schemes. And two, his from a historical perspective, Mike Brown has not coached well in the playoffs. I mean, just to be honest, right? Whether it was with the Cavs, I mean, aside from being the Pistons, but that was more so LeBron than Mike Brown,
Shining those
right?
wrong Cavs.
Yeah, like he hasn't coached well, like on the Cavs, on the Lakers with Kobe, even last year, right? Like Coach Mike Brown had to coach for Steve Kerr for a few games when Kerr could not coach, and he didn't coach well. Like the Warriors lost 2 games against the Grizzlies after Ja got hurt when Mike Brown was coaching, right? Including a 40-point loss, by the way,
Oh,
in game five, right? So I mean, for me, while I feel like Herter is an X factor, I feel like the biggest X factor in this entire series is Mike Brown. Now, if you were to ask me who the X factor would be in the Warriors, I would presume it would be the perimeter guards for the Warriors off the bench. So GP2 as well as DiVincenzo, because quite frankly, no one in the starting lineup can guard Fox.
You're trying to stop
Like
Fox.
Looney can sort of guard Sabonis to a degree, but there's no one in the starting lineup, including Wiggins, that can guard Fox. But GP2 as well as DiVincenzo, I can see Steve Kerr like either he starts the series with one of those two in the starting lineup, or eventually moves one of those two into the starting lineup throughout the series. I can totally see that because they need to guard Fox, and there's no one in their lineup, in the first lineup, that can guard Fox. So I can see them doing that at some point in the series, if not the first game.
No, yeah, I completely agree with you. I forgot to mention my X factors. For the Kings, I was gonna go with Kevin Huerter, but I think another guy that will play a big role is that's off the bench is Malik Monk. He's been still kind of like somewhat inconsistent-ish, but he's actually played really well this year for the Kings. And so, if he can pop off, because he'll have games where he's kind of average, maybe 10, 15 points, give or take, but he'll have games where he can score 20 plus, right?
Yep.
If he can at least get two, maybe not more than two, if he can get like 3 to 4 games of Monk scoring 20 points, that definitely gives the Kings a huge advantage as well, because that's just more points
Yep.
for them. And that's another person that the Warriors need to pay attention to.
Yep.
So
yeah,
I'm sorry, it just wouldn't be just Fox and Sabonis and Huerter, right? There's who are going to be scoring threats. It adds another person for them to worry about.
Great.
So that's why I think Monk would be an X factor for the Kings, depending on how well he is able to, I guess, temporarily play really well, like exceptionally well. Not saying he's a bad player; he's actually playing pretty well for them. But he's kind of have to take it a notch. Take it up a notch to compete with the Warriors. And I was gonna say the same thing. Anybody guarding Fox, essentially, it's gonna be the X factor and how well they can contain Fox. Because honestly, I don't think especially without Wiseman, they don't really have a true center in general to go against someone like Sabonis. So offensively, it's going to be tough to stop Sabonis. I was actually debating whether or not, if Sabonis was going to be an X factor despite being a key player, because of how much more he will be offensively, just because there isn't really anyone that can stop him from his post ups.
There is no one on the Warriors roster that's taller than 6'9".
Yeah, so I'm like, if Sabonis can just back up every play, he'll just, he's just going to score practically every time because no one can stop him.
Yeah,
and then there's no double, triple, and he's a fantastic passer, so he'll always find the open guy, whether it's Huerter or Monk or Fox or whoever is open, or Barnes.
Yeah,
good shots. So
yeah, I think that Sabonis will have at least two big games in the series, just because again, there's no one taller than 6'9" on the Warriors roster.
Yeah,
Sabonis should have
him having monster games, instead of his normal games, he'll have monster games, maybe 25, 30 points and 15 rebounds or something like that.
Yeah, agreed. But I also think that there will be 1 or 2 games, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be at home for the Warriors, where Draymond and Looney are just going to shut down Sabonis. I think that's going to happen at least once or twice in this series as well. I predict big games for Sabonis, but I also predict one or two duds as well, right? But yeah, very similar to how the Warriors played Ja in the Grizzlies last year. I totally see Kerr having Payton or DiVincenzo just guard Fox, and especially if he starts one of them, right? So, but I totally agree with you with Monk, because the Warriors for the entire 8-9 seasons, their defense is basically a switching defense. In simplistic terms, it's much more complex than that, but they basically play a very switch heavy defense, right? But if you have a guard that's very dynamic, fast, there's a lot of pick and rolls, and you have a ton of shooters, a switching defense, it's super hard to guard that. It's incredibly hard to guard a team that can shoot.
Yeah.
A team to shoot and a guard who can push the pace is so incredibly hard, right? So totally agree with you that Monk is a really extreme X factor in the series as well.